Hello YouTube, this is Mike, and this is, what is the name of this channel again? Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup. Alright, so I asked some questions today which were, can borderlines be cured? Meaning people with borderline personality disorder, can they be cured? Is codependency, BPD and NPD, are they trauma responses? Is BPD and NPD a mental illness, or is it a response to trauma? We're going to talk about this question. Before I do that, I want to read a comment that was left on the channel. And this was by somebody who wants to make the argument that borderline personality disorder is not a mental illness. I want to talk about that later, and I want to talk about this person's comment. Bear in mind, if you come onto my channel and leave a comment, the whole world can see it, and I assume that you want to discuss it. So it's nothing personal. I don't know who you are. Even if I say something that you don't like, that's okay. I'm just one person. And I should qualify, I am not a mental health professional. I am not a psychologist, psychiatrist. I am an armchair investigator into all of this because I am somebody who survived an extremely toxic relationship with somebody whom I believe has severe borderline personality disorder, perhaps comorbid with some other things, and this person was undiagnosed and untreated. I also, just to qualify, I grew up in an extremely dysfunctional home, and the jury's out as to whether or not my mother was a borderline. She certainly had borderline traits, without a doubt. I think that my brother might have narcissistic personality disorder himself. And so I suffered trauma and abuse in those. My father died of alcoholism. So I'm well versed in interacting with these kinds of personalities, and I have a unique perspective, which I'm going to share with you today. So before I read my notes, which I wrote it all down so I don't get lost, because I tend to go off on tangents, I first want to read the comment that got me thinking about this and sent me on a little research errand to find out. So in response to my video, does the borderline narcissist really love you? This was 3 days ago. Now somebody came on, and it turns out, this may be significant later, this person created their YouTube ID the very day that they responded. So, you know, this is the thing. If, you know, you can click on somebody's name and find out how long have they been on YouTube. And so lots of times you'll see fake people's profiles, which there is at least one person who trolls my channel with continuous fake profiles because I keep blocking them because they're abusive. This person was not abusive, but they created their YouTube profile the same day, so it's got me suspicious just on that. But this person says it's not a mental illness, it's a disorder, referring to BPD. Disorder of perspectives. Nothing is wrong with the brain. BPD is disorder, it's in the name. And then they say, you have great content, continuing learning and sharing. It helps many. So that made me think that this was somebody who was enjoying the channel. And now, to be honest, I'm not sure who this person is, but I don't know. This person then came on again later, later on, 1 or 2 days later. Yeah, 1 day later, and in response to my video, BPD, NPD, the real person behind the borderline's masks, this person says, again, the theme is very clear. BPDs can be cured. I don't think it's fair that you put absolutes. This person says, I was a BPD, and now I am nowhere near it. Again, I think you have some great content, but I don't think everything you say is the truth. I think that you can be very helpful for, I don't know what. I don't believe in some of your absolutes. So I respond because this person is saying that they are cured, that they've been cured of BPD, or imply that. And I say, if that's true, that's amazing. Please tell us how you were cured. And that was an honest question, because I've never seen that. Now, the psychological, professional standpoint is very clear. There is no confusion. So, I mean, since I put this channel on, and again, I'm not a health professional, so I'm learning as I go. There has been no shortage of people who have come on and said this very thing, that borderline personality disorder is not a mental illness. It can be cured. That we're not narcissists, et cetera, et cetera. Stop stigmatizing us. But the more I looked into it, the more I learned from borderlines themselves that it, in fact, is not something that can be cured. It can be dealt with very effectively through treatment, where people can change their behavior in relationships and they can manage their symptoms and have some improvement in their internal perspective. But in terms of the actual, the mechanism of borderline personality disorder, which creates the split of you love somebody, you hate them, you only see them as a parent, and you really don't ever get past that aspect of it, that never goes away. At best, they still split, but they have ways to manage and cope, sometimes very extreme ways, which not everybody would want to be a part of, but nevertheless, they have methods. And there's some DBT therapy. I don't know anything about it. Apparently, that's very effective. So I was honestly asking the question, if that's true, that's amazing. Please tell us how you were cured. And then I wanted to be clear. Is it that the impulse to split has disappeared? Or do you still split, but you're able to modify your behavior? The reason why I asked that question is because that would make a difference, because there's a difference between being cured of something and having the symptoms being managed. For instance, if somebody is diabetic, they have any other incurable, dysfunction. But you can take insulin on a daily basis and you can monitor the symptoms. But if you stop taking insulin, you can still die of diabetes. So if this person is going to tell me that they've been in therapy and they've learned to modify their symptoms, then it doesn't mean they're cured. But for all intents and purposes, for the rest of us, it might be that. The experience might be that they're no longer borderline. I mean, that's still never going to be the case from what I've seen. So anyways, I was very honest about that, and I wanted to find out if they had been cured or if they had just learned how to modify their symptoms. This person goes on to say, in response to that, it has been very refreshing feeling to now understand why I thought and felt and acted as I did, past tense. Years of therapy, podcasts, to understand how I ended up with shame. When we are filled with shame, we have no self-worth. When we have no self-worth, we attract others with no self-worth. And when people have no self-worth, they bleed on each other. Once I did the work to understand my perspectives and educated, I guess herself, to learn a different way, I now know how to effectively communicate. I don't feel a need to split anymore because I don't feel worthless. I now surround myself with people who are kind and loving toward me. So there's a bunch of things in that, but the main thing is that person is saying, yes, I am cured. And in terms of how they got cured, which is kind of a strange answer, years of therapy, so that makes sense. Podcasts, I don't know that podcasts have any healing power. I think at best, podcasts like mine, the best you're going to get out of it is maybe get some change of perspective so that you will seek out actual cures, actual therapy, not necessarily cures. So, years of therapy, but when she said podcasts, that's the reason why that bothers me is because look, even if you don't have a mental illness, even if you suffer from severe codependence or severe anxiety or severe something, it's impossible, virtually impossible, even for people who don't have personality disorders, to cure themselves, because the problem is in your own thinking and in your own self-referential internal environment. So if your thinking is broken, you can't fix your thinking with your own thinking. It doesn't work like that. You can't educate yourself out of these kinds of things, and the other thing is that if somebody truly is mentally ill, they are less likely to see that they have a mental illness. People who don't have a mental illness actually are more prone to say, I feel crazy, I worry that I'm losing my mind. The other thing that bothers me here is that there is zero responsibility being taken in terms of if this person was a borderline, then they caused other people damage by definition. So there's no taking any responsibility for, I realize how much I hurt other people. None of that is there. In fact, it kind of blames other people by saying that because she had no self-worth, she attracted other abusive people, other people with no self-worth. And as she says, and when people have no self-worth, they bleed on each other. And then she goes on to say that when she learned how to communicate based on, I'm assuming, her self-worth, then she attracted better people. So again, she's still, with BPD and NPD, there's an external locus of control, meaning it's coming from outside of me. I am a helpless victim. There's no responsibility there. She was that way because other people treated her in a way that gave her no self-worth. Once she found self-worth, then people treated her better. So again, the focus is on people are treating me better, not I'm treating other people better, even though she claims that she has no need to split. So I think at best this person is in denial. Perhaps they are in some kind of therapy and they're moving forward and they're growing and learning, and that's fine. This person might be in denial, or this person might be a BPD/NPD who's putting on a good mask. I've experienced that, with multiple borderlines, is that they can talk a very good game. They can make you think that they really got it together, but it's a mask, because again, BPDs and NPDs, what they want more than anything is to look good. I would be more inclined to believe this person if this person had said, yes, I realize that I have this severe blah, 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 and it's caused me this, and I still have issues with it, and I'm still struggling, because the borderlines that I've interacted with who I believe are on a path to recovery have been people who have said just that. They have stated that, yes, I'm not completely cured, but I still split internally. Sometimes I can monitor the fallout, and sometimes I still, without realizing it. In one case, I text people negative things and I don't realize it, and and I forget about it. So this tells me that this person is either in denial. The other thing, as I said, this YouTube moniker was created the very day this person needed to come on and give me their definition and tell me that I was wrong. I think there's a good chance, although I don't know for a fact, but I suspect that this is the same person that's been trolling my channel, who last year actually started a smear campaign against me. When I first started my channel, I was only 6 months into my channel. There was somebody, some of you know who it is, has a channel, is in the mental health profession, and this person stole video off of my other channel, put it up on their channel, and then used it to smear me. And I found out later, by the time I found out what had happened, this person had deleted it, and I made a video saying, hey, if you want to talk smack about me, go ahead, just don't use my videos. You're free to have whatever opinion you want. That person then wanted to email me and wanted to create some outside connection, which I didn't want to do. And this was somebody who has been very vocal about claiming to have cured themselves of, or have been cured of borderline personality disorder. And now this person says, actually, now I never had BPD, it was CPTSD, and I've cured myself of that. But my experience of them is that they are deceptive, they are extremely abusive, destructive, and definitely have acted consistent with somebody who has NPD. So I think this may be a facade. If it isn't, and it's somebody who actually is, this is a real person, it's not, you know, not pretending to be somebody else, and they really believe it. I mean, I can't prove one way or another. My opinion to date, based on the opinion of professionals and based on my interaction and based on my interaction with borderlines in recovery, is that borderline personality disorder is not something that can be cured. At best, you can only modify the symptoms. But having said that, you know, I think it's possible people can have functional relationships if they are doing that. Now, let's see. Donovan Mitchell. Now, I can't check it, but here's some abuse right here. This person says, when are you going to get over your ex? Don't you think it's unhealthy to dedicate a channel to her? Now, I am 99% sure this is exactly the person I was talking about. This is a fake profile. If I were to click on it, I'd find out this profile was created today. And so I'm going to block this person because I don't, you know, I have a zero tolerance policy with destructive and abusive borderlines. So this person is going to be blocked. They can watch, but they cannot comment ever again. All right, there you go. So that person is gone. Now let's get back. I'm going to read my notes now. So here's my notes. And I want to read them all because, as you know, I tend to go off on tangents, and if I don't stick to my notes. I wrote this down today based on, let me tell you what I experienced. I like to watch Sam Vaknin for two reasons. He is a self-admitted person with NPD who is a psychologist, who is a recognized professional in psychology, and so I've learned a hell of a lot by watching him, and he strikes me as somebody who is telling the truth. And if you watch his videos where he talks about his own narcissism, I mean, it's really amazing. You hear, you know, what it's like to live in the mind of somebody who has NPD. So I have a definition. Okay, what is this? Mookie the Fraud. All right, so this is the same person. I don't know who this is, but we're going to block this too. We're not into abuse here. If you want to leave a comment, if you want to leave a helpful comment or a question, we'll find that. But I think this is the same person who's come on and just now created a brand new thing and is going to, you know, be abusive. So, you know, go do something else with your life. I know exactly who you are and I know what you're doing. All right, so let's see here. Let me now go ahead and read what I wanted to say. What was I saying? So, let me see. Let me bring this. I'm going to hide the comments for myself so I won't get distracted. All right, so I have a definition here, and I think this will be helpful. Now, bear in mind, I am not a professional. This is based on my intuition, my experience, and it helps me to heal and to grow. And this is the whole point of this channel. The whole point of this channel is to help borderlines to heal from the damage of the destructive relationships they've been in. And I'm happy to, I hope I'm accurate. I try to give accurate knowledge according to my understanding and whatever's out there. But if I'm inaccurate, I'm okay with that. I am more interested in non-borderlines, codependents, empaths, being able to heal themselves from the relationship they were in. And I think this is the main thing that's missing on YouTube and in general. There's plenty of information out there for borderlines to learn about borderline personality disorder. There's plenty of channels by borderlines who share what it's like for them. Good for them. There's very little, because it's not politically correct to talk about the horrific damage that is done to partners of borderlines and narcissists, because then people will label you as being, first off, just the shame inherent in being a codependent. Codependents are, because of their shame, will either not talk about their pain or they will catastrophize it. In other words, they'll just be, the super empath, Heyoka victims who try to destroy narcissists. There's really not a whole lot of support for people, who aren't catastrophizing, who are really talking about the pain and working through the pain and trying to understand where they've been and what's happened to them. My experience with being with an untreated borderline is that my experience with it is that the pain does not go away. The psychological damage, the damage to one's self-worth, the cognitive dissonance, which to me, I use the word cognitive dissonance, but that's basically being in hell. Being in hell and questioning your own sanity in a very horrific way is something that lasts even after the relationship is over. It's damage that's done to you, and so there needs to be a place where people can talk about their pain without worrying about am I stigmatizing somebody, or without going to the other realm of denial, which is what you find with all of the empath and the super empath and the Heyoka. All that stuff is just a form of denial, and people, to be honest, they're teetering between codependence and secondary narcissism. All right, so I want to give my definition of what codependence is, because what I want people to meditate on is the idea that there isn't a difference, a huge difference between the codependent and the borderline and the narcissist. In fact, the core problem is the same, but there's a difference in a degree, and there is a point of no return where one goes into personality disorder, mental illness, and somebody is not necessarily mentally ill, but they're suffering from the same issue. It's just whether or not they have the plasticity to heal and grow and move on. And the definition of mental illness is that there's some part of it that can't ever be healed. It can't ever be completely restored. So let me read my notes before I go any further. So I write, can BPD be cured? Is it a mental illness or trauma response? My definition: codependence, addiction, and mental disorders all stem from varying levels of codependence. So my definition of codependence is at some point in the formative years between 0 and 4 years of age, perhaps beyond that, I don't know. 4 years of age may be kind of arbitrary, but somewhere between 0 and 4 years of age, the child is programmed by the parents and or siblings to interact based on transactional love. So transactional love means that you get your worth from what you do for other people, what function you serve, not for who you are. And my belief and my understanding is that for a human being to grow up and be healthy, you must first be born, with a fully functional brain. And then on top of that, you must be given unconditional love by your parents and siblings while you're an infant. A good example of this is like in the Far East. You'll see little kids running around and just creating all kinds of havoc, and the parents sit there and let it happen. They don't do anything. Oh, it's a little kid. Can't do anything about it. And then when they get to a certain age, then they start disciplining them. And so the discipline in Eastern cultures is very, very strict. But the first 4 years, the kids are just given carte blanche to do whatever the hell they want. That's a good example. I don't know if there's love involved in that, but the example is that the infant is incapable of doing anything for anybody. In fact, the infant has nothing but needs, and the infant must be given unconditional love. Unconditional love is symbolized by the Madonna and the child, where Mary is staring at the child with just the slightest of smiles on her face. Her face is blank except for a slight smile. And she's looking deeply into the eyes of the infant, and the infant looks up at her, and that is what happens, the mirroring, that the infant is looking into the mother's eyes to see themselves. And when the mother has no agenda and has no selfish or narcissistic agenda on the child, then the child has the ability then to create an identity. And so the child is loved simply because they exist. The mother is completely focused on, I want to know who this being is. This is not me, this is another being, and this being has their own personality and traits and strengths and weaknesses and uniqueness. And all of those things which are unique, or even things that might even be considered as deficits, the mother with the unconditional love says that's what makes this child beautiful. In fact, this child is unique and special among all other children because of these specific things, and the child can do no wrong. And so that gives the child the ability to create an identity. In absence of that, the infant has no identity, and their transitional existence, because the identity gives constancy, but without an identity there's no constancy in their own existence. In other words, when mom leaves the room, the child disappears. They stop existing, and this is traumatic. And as I've talked about in other videos, the fastest way to kill an infant, besides physically killing them, is to not interact with the child. And there's been, historical proof that if you feed a child, an infant, clothe an infant, keep it warm, keep it clean, the child will die. The infant will die if you do not pick it up, talk to it, interact with it. It needs that or it will die. It needs that more than it needs food, clothing, water, shelter. So when an infant gets just enough interaction to keep from dying, then you create the risk for, first you create codependence, because codependence is your worth does not come from who you are, it comes from what you do. Your entire existence is based on the reaction of other people to you. Now you're starting to understand why narcissists are the way they are. And they live in a perfectionistic transactional relationship. So they get the feeling that either overtly from the parent, or they create it within themselves as a defense mechanism or a survival mechanism. They come to the conclusion that they must be perfect at everything all the time, or they will stop existing. And this is where, so we have this timeline here where when that trauma is created, then you end up with a narcissist. So a narcissist creates, in order to survive, it has no identity. It cannot self-reflect and say, I am okay because I exist and I am unique, and they can't do that because that process was never allowed to take place. So in order to survive, they create the fantasy image of themselves, which is perfect and has no flaws. And my understanding is that doesn't really come to fruition until, late teens, early adulthood, which would make sense. That would make sense that my brother was a narcissist, because it wasn't until he reached adulthood that his narcissism really went full blown and he was incapable of functioning for himself. So I think that might be the case. So in any case, codependence is the basis for all of it. Now, the difference between whether or not somebody is a codependent or whether or not somebody has a personality disorder, again, this is just my take on it, and so far I think I'm right, but who knows, is the timeline and the degree. So codependence, borderlines, narcissists, and probably every other kind of personality disorder is based on the malformation of an identity because of lack of unconditional love, and their entire existence depends on transactional relationships. Codependent. So the narcissist has the most immature codependent response, which is, I'm perfect, there's nothing wrong with me, meet all of my needs, you don't exist, I only want what I want, and to the degree that you give me what I want, and by the way, I'm perfect. That would be the earliest manifestation. So the damage was so bad, at the very least, the neglect was so bad that created that firewall. And that firewall, I use firewall because it's impenetrable. They never ever acknowledge any responsibility, because to do so would kill them. This is something you need to understand. The reason why the narcissist can never take responsibility is because if they took responsibility, the horrific pain that it would cause them would kill them. So the second we go further than that, the second stage would be borderline personality disorder, where you have somebody maybe a little further along or got a little bit more interaction. And so they still are codependent, meaning that their existence is based transactionally. They exist only because of what they do for other people. They are perfectionistic. They have to be perfect in order to get love. They're not loved for who they are. They are more aware, more consciously aware of the pain of non-identity and the pain of being about to die because they aren't being interacted with. So again, I think it's maybe a little later in life, or maybe a little tiny bit more interaction, or perhaps, because most borderlines are women, perhaps the hormonal difference between men and women, because men tend to be more narcissistic anyway. They have more of a firewall just in general. So maybe that, those factors. And so then you have next on the line, you have borderline. And then you have kids, infants who maybe got a little bit more interaction. They were able to create an immature but an existing identity. Now their existing identity still is transactionally based, meaning they must get their love and approval based on what they do for others. In fact, if they were given attention, more love and attention, by being a good little boy or girl, whatever the hell that meant, maybe even responding to abuse or whatever else, they responded the right way, they got rewarded, and that gave them just enough identity so that they didn't actually have the disorder. They didn't get a mental illness as a result, but they're still immature, malformed identities that are based on transactional love. And so then we've got varying degrees. So to me, there seems to be a tipping point where at some point the codependence, meaning the transactional love, the whatever, there's a tipping point where it goes to a mental illness, where something breaks, where it happens early enough or it's intense enough that something inside the infant breaks and they become a narcissist. So bear in mind that borderline personality disorder and narcissism, they're the same thing. And I was just watching Sam Vaknin today, who was saying that the most recent psychological understanding is that they're now, instead of having all these different personality disorders, it's going to be in degree of intensity. So there's just going to be, this person has a personality disorder, and the degree of it will determine what we would describe as borderline, antisocial, narcissistic. So I find that interesting, and that makes sense to me, and that was my instinct kind of all along, which is kind of what I'm talking about here. So the spectrum starts with mild codependence, or commonly being called an empath. So if you identify as an empath, you know, if you listen to people, even people who go on and talk about being an empath, they will at some point reveal that their existence is based on saving the world, healing other people. I have all this love for other people. And so whether they realize it or not, what they're saying is my value comes from what I do for other people. I'm not here for myself. And if you get some of the really deluded, super empaths, they'll talk about, I'm here to answer people's prayers. I mean, I literally saw that. I was looking around and somebody was talking about the empath is the answer to other people's prayers. And we're here to fix the problems of the world. And he was dead serious. So that is transactional love. You can call yourself an empath, you can spiritualize it all you want, and even if it's true, even if your purpose for being here is because the universe said you're going to go down as a super empath to heal the wounds of all the world, it doesn't change the fact that your existence is based on transactional love. You are not loved for who you are, you're loved for what you do. So you can get upset with the word codependent all you want, it doesn't change anything. Because my definition of codependent is somebody who defines themselves based on what they do for other people. And the defining factor of their worth and their value is what they do. You have a narcissist, if you have a codependent narcissist, if you have an inverted secondary narcissist, they will in fact seek to become the ultimate servant or the ultimate doormat, because their entire narcissistic supply comes from being able to say, see how perfect I am, I met your need. I allowed you to abuse me, or I healed you, or, this is all, again, a form of, narcissism. So it's kind of hard. You have to make the distinction between, is somebody a codependent, even an empath? If they're codependent, do they have a personality disorder, meaning did something break and they're mentally ill, or are they more plastic and are they able to recover and actually do some work to finish creating their identity? That to me is the difference. The codependent who doesn't have a mental illness, if they apply self-honesty and if they do the work, I think they have the ability to continue to create their identity, which will give them more healing and more functionality. I don't think they'll ever be free of it. I've never known any codependent that ever got completely cured. But they're able to, they don't suffer from a mental illness. Anyway, let me read all this and let me get to some other things which are like the difference between those that have a mental illness and those that are just codependent. So, my definition: codependence, addiction, and mental disorders all stem from varying levels of codependence, transactional, perfectionistic relationships. The spectrum starts with mild codependence, or commonly being called an empath, on one spectrum, with NPD on the other spectrum, on the other side of the spectrum. Both are forms of trauma response and codependence. So for those who say that codependence is not this, it's a trauma response, I know, that's a symptom. For those who say borderline personality disorder is a trauma response, this is well known. Yeah, that's a symptom of your mental illness. That doesn't exclude your mental illness. It only further enhances the evidence that you are in fact mentally ill, because it's a trauma response. It's a mental illness that was caused by severe trauma. At some point, the trauma response becomes intolerable to the conscious mind and creates the need for dissociation, which creates mental illness. So I'm saying the thing that breaks within the infant is that when the infant, the trauma response to just about to die from lack of interaction or outright abuse, that creates a dissociation because it becomes consciously intolerable. The pain is intolerable, so in order to survive the trauma, they dissociate. So they don't identify with themselves. If you don't have an identity to begin with, it's very easy. They don't identify with themselves. Life becomes a movie. And so they watch themselves as though they're watching a movie. That's what creates the lack of empathy for other people and the lack of empathy for themselves. They don't exist. They become a robot. And so at some point, the trauma response becomes intolerable to the conscious mind and creates the need for dissociation, which creates mental illness. All codependents, whether mentally ill or not, suffer from the same trauma response from transactional perfectionist love. But those who qualify as having disorders have caused permanent damage to their psyche and perhaps their brain functioning during infancy. I theorize that non-disorder codependence may have been created later in childhood after the brain and psyche had developed an immature identity. But the codependence itself is still a reaction to the need to distance oneself from the trauma. The reason why non-disordered, meaning those who aren't mentally ill, the reason why non-disordered codependents seek out disordered partners, BPDs and NPDs, is an attempt to unconsciously prevent their own schizoid dissociation by seeking to heal the disordered partner. Meaning that the non-disordered codependent, so the codependent who doesn't have a mental illness, but still is suffering from the trauma of growing up in a transactional love bond with the parent, they feel that they're about to go insane. I can remember this as a kid. I can remember it clear as day. I can remember if not my first, certainly one of my first memories. I was 4 years old, and my family was around, my mother, my father, my sister, and my brother. And they were lighting a candle on a cake, and I remember sort of like waking up. It was sort of like I woke up. That's how I remember it. Like I woke up, and I was looking around, and I knew that these people were my family. And I can remember them pushing the cake in front of me, blow out the candles. And I remember looking at them and thinking, in my little 4-year-old brain, that I didn't know who the hell these people were. And that was a very traumatizing feeling. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who these people were. I didn't know what was happening. And there were times as I grew up, I can remember being 7 years old and 10 years old, where that flash would come upon me. The flash that would come upon me would be this feeling like all of a sudden the reality is that I felt insane. I felt like I was going crazy, and I didn't know who these people were. So I'm saying that people who don't have a mental illness are the ones who feel like they're going crazy. Those that have the disorder, those that are mentally ill, have gone into complete denial over that. They don't feel like they're going crazy. They don't take any responsibility. The codependent is able to take responsibility. In fact, will take on excess responsibility in an attempt to not go insane. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that the process of creating a mentally ill codependent person is that depending on how intense the codependence is, they feel that they are going to dissociate. They feel they're going to lose themselves, lose their body, lose their identity, and they will, they'll disappear. So they're feeling like they're going crazy, and they feel like that all the time. And the only thing that satisfies that intense anxiety is to be the caregiver, to take care of other people, to be the perfect student, to whatever it is. So that's why you see, they're all codependent. The borderline has no ability to be there for other people. The borderline vacillates back and forth between codependently pleasing others and or demanding narcissistic attention, And then you have the codependent who is fully, completely engaged in just taking care of other people because they're on the verge of going crazy. That make sense? But because they feel like they're going crazy, they don't. And because they feel like they're going crazy, that's kind of the definition that they're not. But it was like the process. They were about to. They were about to snap. They were about to snap and become borderline or narcissist, and it didn't quite take. So this is why I say, I hijacked Sam Vaknin's definition where he said that, there's the narcissist and then the borderline is a failed narcissist. And I say the codependent, the non-disordered codependent, is a failed borderline. All right, let's keep going. So, where was I? So the reason why non-disordered codependents seek out disordered partners, they seek out borderlines and narcissists, is an attempt to unconsciously prevent their own schizoid dissociation by seeking to heal the disordered partner. So in other words, they project onto the disordered partner themselves. They see in the disordered partner what they fear is imminently coming for them. And if they can just heal the borderline, they can just heal the narcissist, then that means there's hope for them and they will, by proxy, stop the process of their own imminent insanity. See what I mean? That really explains to me why the addiction is there. Why codependents or empaths seek out borderlines and narcissists, and why they cannot get out of the trauma bond, as people call it. The trauma bond is really an attempt to this last time. And the reason why they can't just go, this person, there's no hope, it's never going to work, is because if they do that, they'll be giving up on themselves, which means they'll go crazy. And they can't tolerate that thought. It's intolerable, the thought of them losing their sanity. So they're going to make sure that person gets sane, gets loved, and finds an identity, and then they can relax. So this is why I say this is all a form of narcissism. Codependence is a form of projective narcissism. You're trying to heal yourself. It has nothing to do with the other person. And the difference is that you're not insane, but you don't recognize that the borderline or the narcissist actually has a mental illness. If you were to recognize that, you would see the difference, that you're not them, but because you can't see that, you feel you're about to become that, so you can't get out of the trauma bond. Can't release yourself. What else? What else did I say here? This is why codependents feel such intense panic. Let's back up a little bit. The reason why non-disordered codependents seek out disordered partners is an attempt to unconsciously prevent their own schizoid dissociation by seeking to heal the disordered partner. This is why codependents feel such intense panic when not able to be with or heal their disordered partners, because it represents their greatest fear of losing their own tenuous hold on their own identity. If they can heal the disordered person, then they can prevent their own insanity from occurring. The non-disordered codependent unconsciously feels that they are about to lose their grip on reality. This is a representation of the arrested development of their own psyche, which was traumatized just as they were beginning to create their own identity. So it's a snapshot. They were just beginning to create their identity when that was arrested. So they're arrested they're just forming the identity, and then they're forced to stop, and they're stuck there. They're not borderline, they're not a healthy person, they're stuck in the middle. So as adults, they feel they are constantly about to lose themselves, and this creates a non-specific anxiety that never fully goes away. As horrific as it is to be enmeshed with a disordered person, the non-disordered codependent feels a familiarity with the chaos that the disordered partner brings to their psyche. So ironically, while being with a disordered partner creates unbearable cognitive dissonance, it gives a false comfort to the non-disordered codependent's mind to feel that they are about to solve once and for all their own seemingly imminent descent into insanity. This is why it is impossible for someone to be in a relationship with a disordered person, borderline or narcissist, without either stimulating existing codependent trauma response, and then I stopped right there. I don't remember what I was going to say after that. So the professional opinion of mental illness is that these disorders, mental disorders, are caused by trauma responses. And as I said, from what I'm hearing, maybe not in the United States, I think there's a difference between the US and the rest of the world, but in the rest of the world, the professional opinion is that, we're no longer going to be making these distinctions. We're just going to call it personality disorder based on severity, if I'm hearing it right, which is exactly how I feel about it. I feel that narcissism is the extreme. I mean, if we go to the very extreme, we're talking about, mass murderers and serial killers, and then we go down the line, and then we get to, at some point, we get to the borderline. Some people even say that some serial killers are in fact comorbid borderlines. And then you go from borderline, and then comes the somewhere there's this demarcation between mental disorder and then just psychological issues, that are more plastic, that are more able to be healed. So the difference, this comes up with the difference. So if I'm saying, which I have been all along, that codependence and borderlines are basically the same thing, it's just a different reaction to it, then the question comes up, yeah, but borderlines have some serious things that are associated with brain dysfunction and with mental illness, which is they don't have any object constancy. They do not have true empathy. They are psychopathic. They lose time. They have difficulty remembering, who they were from one day to the next. They'll forget whole periods of time. They rewrite history. So something will happen and they'll remember it in a completely different way or forget it altogether. And so there's a difference, whereas the non-disordered codependent has object constancy. When you leave the room, they will remember. When they make a commitment, they can follow through on their commitments. In fact, to a fault. I would say that that is what makes them codependent, is that they make commitments and then they'll die before walking away from a dysfunctional commitment that's not serving them. But they have, that shows that they don't have a mental illness. They don't have a brain disorder that prevents them from doing certain things. They don't dissociate. So the borderline and the narcissist dissociate from themselves. And that's one of the reasons why they have no empathy, because they're watching a movie and they weren't the one that did it anyway. No, that wasn't me. Who was the guy, some famous serial killer, when he was confronted by his girlfriend about, what about all those people you killed? He said, that wasn't me. I didn't do that. And he meant it. People would say they'd watch him, and when he would, I'm thinking now, when he would dissociate, his eyes would change color. His eyes would change color and his eyes would go black, and they would say it's like a whole other person, a demon showing up. But that's just another form of dissociation. So when that happens, they can look back and go, yeah, that wasn't me. I saw that happening, but it wasn't me. I didn't do that. So non-disordered codependents don't have that. Every day, I write down here, every day is Groundhog Day. So the movie Groundhog Day, if you haven't seen it, go see it, with Bill Murray, is that he gets stuck in a time loop and every day is the same day. So he wakes up and he has to live the same day over and over again. And so there's a period where he becomes really psychopathic, where he just does whatever the hell he wants to whomever, and steals and robs and lies because he knows he's going to wake up tomorrow and it's not going to mean anything because that day will be gone. And so these people don't really exist. So borderlines and narcissists live in Groundhog Day every day, which is why they married you yesterday, but they wake up today and it was like, that wasn't me. And they can just leave. You don't exist. Out of sight, out of mind. That was yesterday. That was some other guy. That wasn't me. Non-disordered codependents have object constancy. They have consistent time. They are able to follow through with commitments. Because they have an immature identity. They have an identity, but it is immature. It's desperately trying to right itself. And because of that, non-disordered codependents can attach, whereas borderlines and narcissists are incapable of attaching for reasons that I just mentioned. Okay, so let's see. There's a lot right there. I think I pretty much said everything I wanted to say about that. So what's the point of this? The point of this is to help the non-borderline to realize that the person that they're with is not you. You are projecting onto them because you see in them where you're about to go. You feel you're about to turn into that. And you're about to turn into that person, and you're afraid of losing your mind, losing your identity. So you desperately seek to heal them. And so you tell yourself how much you love them, which is again a projection. When people, if you watch me in here, people will talk about, what are you talking about? All I wanted to do was love them and take care of them. That's all I wanted. So I'm a bad person because I loved them? And I'm like, you didn't love them because you didn't even know who they were. If you knew who they were, you would know that they had a mental illness and that they're absolutely incapable of loving you, and that they don't see you the way you see them. They're not going to give you what you want. But because you see them as yourself, you see them as somebody who has object constancy, who has an identity, who has the ability to attach, who has empathy, who can has time constancy where they don't live in Groundhog Day. Because you see them that way, and you not only do you see them that way, but you insist on seeing them that way. You insist on seeing them that way because if you accept that they went crazy, so to speak, then that means you're going to go crazy, and you can't tolerate that thought. So you rush to take care of them, to heal them, to love them, and your biggest fantasy is that they will go, yes, I feel the love, it's all okay, I'm going to be okay now, and I love you back. And while you want to have the love back, your main goal is to avoid going crazy. And that's why people get so angry with me. By the way, this is the other reason why codependents insist on seeing the borderline as being evil. Because if the borderline is evil, it means they chose to do it. So whenever you say they're evil, or they have to be held accountable, or there has to be some reconciliation, or they must be, there needs to be closure. I had that same thought when I left my borderline. I was saying, and I have it on video, and I played it for you guys a while back on video of me saying, I just want her to know what she did. I just want her to understand what she did to me. The need that I had was a very honest, lack of understanding of what it was to be a borderline. I didn't understand it fully. But I also had a very strong need for her to be able to take responsibility for her feelings. On a projective note, because then that would mean I could take responsibility for my feelings and be healthy. But it was also an unconscious desire that she could turn around and love me someday. So those of you who insist on telling me that no, they have a mental illness, but they're evil and they do it on purpose, they get off on it, you are holding on to that because you want them to love you. You say, no, I don't. I hate her. I'm never going to see her again. I'm going to dance on her grave when she's dead. You are saying on an unconscious level, as long as she is evil, she's responsible, which means that someday she can turn around and love me. Even if you know it's not her, you're hoping that some other narcissist will turn around and love you because you're still trying to get your mother or your dad or your sibling to love you, and they never will. All right? So that's the whole point of this is so that non-borderlines can realize who they're with and stop the insanity, even if you're not in the relationship, Stop the insanity of wanting them to love you. Because if you truly see them for who they are, you'll realize, number one, you were projecting the whole time. I don't care if you were with them for 40 years and had 10 kids. You never saw that person. You didn't really love them because you didn't know who the hell they were. And that your love for them was narcissistic. Your need, your justification of, I just loved them. All I wanted was to take care of them. All I wanted was for them to be happy. How am I a bad person? Because that's all your selfish narcissistic projection, because that's what you want. You want mom or dad to swoop down out of the sky and pick you up and finish giving you your identity. Love you unconditionally, heal the wound so that you can finally finish your identity and be mature and go out in the world and enjoy life. All right, now I'm happy to take questions if you have any. All right, there was somebody who came on earlier who I believe is the same person who was being abusive, so I blocked them. All right, let's see here. Bear in mind, the best way to interact with me is to have an honest question or an honest feeling. But let's see here. Somebody says, my friend Laura Leon from Sovereign Key said the real full-fledged BPD has an actual fracture in the brain. Well, I have no idea if that's true or not. The real question is, if borderline personality disorder is an actual physical brain disorder, was it that they were born with some genetic predisposition, or was the brain disorder caused by the trauma? That's my real question. All right, I don't know what that person is saying. God Emperor question, would a borderline benefit from having an internal locus of control? So, God Emperor, I appreciate you being on the channel. I just want you to be clear, you're from my other channel. I don't think this applies to you. So all the things I'm talking about, I know your specific instance. I don't think this applies to you. So just to be clear, I mean, I'm happy for you to be here, but I don't want you to take anything that I'm saying and apply it to yourself, because you have a different scenario, which, is your personal thing, which I'm not going to talk about. But would they benefit from having an internal locus of control? They can't have an internal locus of control. That's the problem. In order to have an internal locus of control, you have to have an identity. Borderlines and NPDs don't have an identity, so that's why everything is an external locus of control. I don't know if they can create one through therapy or not. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, they would definitely benefit from it, but that's the problem. They don't have one. They can't have one. Playground Earth, I couldn't agree more. So God Emperor says, okay, so Playground Earth was agreeing with me, so thank you for that. God Emperor says, I was with someone with multiple personality disorder a long time ago, and she had a huge negative effect on me. Yeah, so people are saying now that borderline personality disorder is in fact a form of what people used to call multiple personality disorder. I think they call it dissociative identity disorder. But it means that you dissociate. So borderlines and narcissists are they're completely dissociated from themselves. That's why when you're with them and you're talking with them and you're making love to them, or you're crying or you're laughing or whatever it is that you're doing, they're not really there. They're watching. They watch from the seats. They're sitting in the audience watching it, not identifying it, enjoying or not enjoying what's going on, just like you would in any movie. And then when they go to sleep or you leave the room, the movie flickers off and they go into another movie. Oh, that's why they cheat on you so easily, because the moment you leave the room, it's like the channel has changed. The show's over and a new show showed up. Somebody else walked in the room. Oh, now we're back to watch. Oh, you came back. Oh, we're watching the Brady Bunch now. Oh, we're watching the Partridge Family. So they're just going from one TV show to another. That's why they have no empathy. Borderlines, as opposed to narcissists, have shame, and they feel really shameful over the things that they do, and so they can feel a lot of guilt. But the guilt isn't true empathy, the guilt comes from their transactional codependence, because they know that they harmed somebody, and they know that that's bad, and they know that they won't be loved because of that, and so they beat themselves up and they guilt themselves, but it's self-abuse. It's self-directed narcissistic abuse. It's not true knowledge. For example, I made this example in one of my videos, I think. But you see this in movies all the time, where something will happen and somebody will cheat on the wife or something like that. And then as the movie goes on, you'll find out what the extenuating circumstances were, and he'll say, you didn't deserve that, and I'm very sorry. And the other person will say, but I understand, because I was going through this, and so there's an understanding that it was wrong and it'll never happen again. And so the man will say, or the woman will say, can you ever forgive me? And the partner will say, yes, it'll take some time, but yes, I will forgive you. Meaning that I'm not going anywhere, I'm still with you, I'm still going to love you, but yes, I will need to process this while we're together, so be patient with me. Now that's true acknowledgement. You can have feelings of guilt. Borderlines don't do that. Borderlines beat themselves up, they apologize, they may mean it when they say it'll never happen again, but they don't have the object constancy or the constancy within themselves, or they're not, because of their dissociation, they're not able to follow through. That was a movie that happened yesterday. Oh, I remember watching that. I was watching that movie, and there was that girl, and she was so upset, and she had hurt that guy, and it was really sad, and she promised to never hurt him again. Yeah, that was yesterday's movie, but this is today, and I don't relate to that. My borderline looked me in the face after going through a 3-week period of dissociation, because she was on medication for anxiety, which ironically kept her from splitting, but made her feel like she was going crazy. In fact, she was telling me, I feel like I'm going crazy. And she made all kinds of promises, which I took to mean something. And then she got herself together and she was back to normal. But she didn't remember any of those 3 weeks. She didn't remember anything that happened. And when I told her, you said this, you did that, with tears in my eyes, she said, yeah, I don't remember. I said, but you promised me you were going to do this. Instead of saying, I'm not going to fulfill that promise, she said, yeah, I don't remember that. So, meaning I have no if I don't remember it, I don't have any responsibility, and I don't feel bad. Sorry that happened to you, but that was another movie. This is a different movie. I'm in a different movie now. This has a different story. So there's this thing called confabulation. So there's a difference between lying and confabulation. If you are codependent, you say that your borderline lied to you, misled you. They didn't. When they told you whatever it is they were telling you, unless they were in fact being manipulative. So don't get me wrong, they can be manipulative and psychopathic. But in those moments when they're not, and they are love bombing you, and they're in love with you, and they tell you whatever they tell you, they mean it, because that is the video of that day. In that movie that they're in, the way that movie's going to end is that you are going to fall in love and get married and live happily ever after for the next 20 years. That's the movie they're in that day. They go to sleep, or they split, or you leave the room, and that movie's gone, and they start to create a new movie. The new movie is the wake up the next day, and they remember that they harmed you, or they cheated on you, or they did whatever they did. And so they come back to you and they give you a confabulation, meaning they don't know. Maybe they don't remember. They know enough to remember. I had this phone call once too. After, I won't get into what happened, but it was a really toxic experience. And I left and I went home. And the next day she called me and said, hey, I don't remember what happened. I know that something weird happened, but whatever it was, and hey, I just want to apologize. That was the most honest. I mean, to her credit, she was really trying to be honest. That was the most honest thing she could say. But there were times when she would say, no, it was because this happened and because that happened. And yeah, I cheated on him and killed your cat, but you don't understand. It's because this angel came out of the sky and forced me to take acid, and then a guy put a gun to my head. It's not that they're lying, it's that there's a blank spot. They go back to that day, which was a different day, that they weren't associated, they were dissociated from themselves. They don't remember what happened in the movie. So in order to make themselves feel better, they write a new movie. It's not a lie. It's not a lie if it never happened. It's a lie if it happened and you know it happened and you say something else happened and you consciously make a lie. That's a lie. A confabulation is, well, I know something bad happened. I can't remember it. It must have been that something forced me to do it. That makes me feel better. I don't feel bad when I think about somebody forcing me to do it. And then that becomes the truth. They rewrote the script because there's an empty blank page in the movie, and they rewrote the script to keep a continuation of them feeling good. Then that becomes the truth. Then later on, when they say, no, I told you what happened. I remember it. What they're remembering is the script they're creating in order to keep their reality together, because their reality is constantly shifting. They live in Groundhog Day every day. Every day is Groundhog Day. That's why they can do the things that they do and they don't feel bad about it. And so the bad stuff, they don't feel bad about it. And the good stuff, they don't remember any of that. They don't remember that you offered to marry them. They don't remember that you bought them a $4,000 computer. They just, now I have this computer now and it's mine, and I don't remember where it came from. I think I bought it. Oh, you bought it? Okay, that was yesterday. Yesterday I was grateful you bought me a computer. Today it's mine, and I'm just not associated with that person. If you understand this, then you realize it's hopeless to try and make a relationship work with them. All right, what else? God Emperor says, normally I would talk suicide, but during the relationship I legitimately tried to do it, but okay, all right. Well, yeah, so I do hope that God Emperor you are, as we've discussed, I hope that you are in therapy. I think you are. Anyway, I'm hoping and glad that things are continuing to get better for you. Black Earth Productions. Hey, what's up? He says, question, can you explain the difference between codependence versus interdependence? I mean, you've asked me that question before, and I got to be honest, I don't know what that means. So I can't talk about something I don't know. If you're talking about what's the difference between codependence and healthy interaction, is that what that means? If interdependence means healthy interaction, the difference is that codependence, people don't individuate. Meaning, so somebody who's individuated says, I have my feelings and you have yours. It's okay for you to have whatever feeling you have, even if I don't like it. I still accept you having the right to have that feeling. I also have my feelings, and it's okay for me to be me and you to be you. There's a separation. The short answer is there's boundaries. Individuation means that when you have a 4-year-old and your 4-year-old is crying and saying, I hate you, Daddy, you look at him and you give him a hug and you say, I know you hate me. It's all right. It's okay. You don't judge them for their feeling. In fact, you give them the right to have the feeling. You don't try and talk them out unless you're an abusive dad and you say, what the fuck did you say? You better turn that frown upside down. You ever talk to me like that, I'll smack the shit out of you. I'll give you something to cry about, you little fuck. That's not individuating. That's reacting to somebody else's feeling, which is very narcissistic. Your state of being is dependent on how other people view you. So being interdependent it doesn't matter. If you wake up and you really your partner didn't do anything wrong, but you just didn't like being around them last night and they smelled bad and I just need to get away from this person. You realize that that's okay that you have that feeling. You don't need to act on that impulse, and you don't need to tell them about it. You tell them, hey, honey, I love you. I'm so glad you're in my life, because this feeling will pass, and then you'll feel better. If they come to you and they say, you know what, I need a break from you right now. I just need to be by myself. You don't take it personally. Those are, I think, what you're trying to ask, if that's what interdependence means. But, codependence is transactional. It's projective and transactional. And so many people, codependents, so many people think they're the loving one in the relationship when in reality they aren't. That's what I'm trying to talk about in this channel. Anyway, I'm not sure if I answered your question or not, or even if I'm accurate. Let's see what else. Playground Earth is agreeing with me. All right. KB says, question, what is locus of control? Great question. On my other channel, which I recognize you from my other channel, my book, I can write it down here. Anybody else wants to go look for it on Amazon, they can. The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. I didn't realize it when I wrote it, but now the subtitle could be How to Create an Internal Locus of Control. So locus of control, locus means placement and control means control. So if somebody has an internal locus of control, it means that they take full responsibility for their life, that they believe that they have the ability to give themselves whatever they need to accomplish whatever they want, regardless of what's coming at them, which is what I teach. On my other channel, I teach people that they should avoid all conspiracy theories. Anything that creates a victim mentality, anything that says something or somebody outside of you is determining anything in your life. The government, taxes, QAnon, the cabal, the reptilians, aliens, God, Jesus, the devil. Anything outside of you controls your life in any way is called an external locus of control. Internal locus of control is what I teach, which is that you have the power to create everything. In fact, you do create everything. If you live in a universe where there are false beings of light who try to dissuade you from, that try to take you and reincarnate you to suck the life out of you, that's an external locus of control. Internal locus of control is no, I am the source of everything. I am one with God, and if I connect to myself, I will always go to heaven when I'm done with this life. I will always have everything that I want. I'll always be healthy. I have if I put myself to it, I can accomplish anything that I want, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or says. Doesn't affect me, and I might be sad about it, but it won't stop me from doing what I want. That's an internal locus of control. People who have personality disorders and codependence, even if they don't have a personality disorder, all have external locuses of control. They are completely dependent on something outside of them for their own internal happiness. And they are either seeking to please others or they're defiantly spiritualizing and acting as though they're above it all. So on YouTube, this is why I point out all of the super empath, Heyoka stuff, all of that is external locus of control. Those are people who are in denial of their own need for other people's love and attention. And so instead of that, they respond to that trauma by acting as though nothing bothers me. They become very narcissistic. Nothing bothers me, and I'm going to destroy because I'm going to destroy the narcissist because I am so spiritual and I'm a Heyoka and I'm here to save the world. And none of those narcissists used to bother me, but now they don't. They're all evil. That's just an external locus of control. The opposite of that is you're chasing after some borderline or some narcissist and you're trying to fix them and you're trying to get them to love you. And if I could just get it right, if I could just figure out how to get them to love me, if I could just figure out how to avoid triggering them, which is why you walk on eggshells all the time. If I can just figure it out, it'll all be okay. It's almost there. I'm making progress. I'm 1 second away of fixing them, and then it'll all be okay. That's also an external locus of control. Internal locus of control says, you know what? Ironically, I have no control over what they do. What they do and what they feel I have no control over it. It's obvious. It's been now 5, 6 times. It's obvious they're not going to love me. I'm out of here. I'm going to take care of myself. Nobody's going to do it for me. Internal locus of control. What else? Podjuk Chips' 3 question. When does the BPD woman re-idealize her old partner? So, welcome to the channel. You're new to the channel, yes? So on my channel, on both my channels, one of the most annoying things about me is, even if you ask a question, sometimes I'm going to say, here's what you really want to ask. Because I'm far more interested in why you're asking the question than in the question itself. Because if I can help you, fix what you truly want to fix, I'm far more interested in that. Now, you don't want that necessarily. You may want to unconsciously manipulate me so that I'll give you the answer that you want so that you can go get your narcissistic fix, and I'm not going to co-sign that. You're new to the channel, you don't know that, but that's what's happening here. What you really want to ask me is, which you almost did, which is, how do I manipulate my borderline partner to constantly idealize me? How can I get my narcissistic supply from her infantilizing her feelings and making me God and always loving me? How can I do that? Well, the first thing that's going on with that question is you don't understand what borderline personality disorder is. People ask me this all the time. It's very understandable because you think that when they're love bombing you, you think you're dealing with the real person, because in your mind, a real person would love you because you're so loving. A real person would love you. So when she's loving you, that must be her. That's the real person. That's her true person, the real identity, the loving, kind, sweet, conscious, rational person. That's really her. There's this other part of her that takes over her, which is the narcissist. When she splits, I don't like that person. And in order to keep my fantasy going, I tell myself that's not the real her. So I am going to figure out how to keep her loving me all the time. So to answer your question, you need to walk on eggshells. You say, what has to happen? You need to walk on eggshells. You need to be filled with anxiety and fear over everything you say and do. And you have to completely turn your life into how can you keep her happy so that you can go back to getting that love you thought you had when she was idealizing you. Now, ironically, when you do that, you're no longer coming from a space of unconditional love. She will sense that. She will feel your discomfort. She will feel your selfishness, and she will split on you in a heartbeat and drop you like a fucking rotten potato. So the answer to your question is, what has to happen? The laws of reality have to completely shift for that to happen, because you are asking me, your assumption is that there are two people. There's the idealizing borderline, and then there's the narcissistic psychopath. And I just want to manipulate her so she'll only be this one. But you can't separate the two, because the reason why she splits on you is because she idealized you. It's a pendulum. Borderlines are never stuck in one place, because to be in one place means that you have the ability to merge positive and negative. It means you have the ability to see somebody as being imperfect. It means you have to be able to tolerate the disappointment of somebody not meeting all your narcissistic, unrealistic fantasies, which is impossible because you're not her fantasy, you're another person. So even when she's idealizing you, she can't hold that fantasy together because reality will strip her fantasy away. She'll blame you for the fact that she's incapable of keeping the fantasy together, which is you are a way for her to dissociate. Remember, dissociation is like having multiple personalities. It means I'm not really there. Her idealizing you is her way of dissociating from herself. But reality never lets that go on forever. So you can't get her to re-idealize you. The other thing that has to happen is that, or I should say the other thing that happens is that You will never get her to idealize you the way she did when she first met you. She, if she comes back to you and hoovers you and idealizes you, it's less intense, and it lasts for a shorter period of time, which means that when that idealization falls through, she will punish you even more. She will be more angry with you than she was the first time. Because in her mind, she's like, my God, I keep giving this guy chances. I create the perfect fantasy for him. He doesn't live it. And so I have to leave him. I've come back out of the goodness of my heart to give him an opportunity, and I'm going to create another fantasy. What is that TV show, WandaVision? I haven't watched it, but I bet you that's what this is about. It's a borderline who keeps creating her fantasy that keeps falling apart. So she keeps creating her WandaVision on you, and each time it happens, it falls through, and you're the one that's at fault because you're the one fucking it up. You're the one that keeps breaking character. You forget your lines. You stop doing what I told you were going to do, and each time she punishes you even harder. Your question is a non-question. They never re-idealize you. They idealize you once. It fails, and then they try to re-idealize you, and they can't do it. I can remember my borderline. I won't tell you what was going on because it was too personal, but I wasn't doing what she wanted, and she was actually gritting her teeth. She was so angry with me that I wasn't being what her fantasy was. And I said, why are you so angry? She says, I want you to, I know you can do that. I want you to be that. I want you to do that. And I went, I got to go. And I had to get up and leave. I can't be here right now. And then she called me and says, I'm sorry. I don't know what was going on with me. You don't understand. You're a fantasy. You're not a real person. You're a fantasy. And she's desperately trying to create the fantasy through which she can escape her hell. And you will never be that. So the question for you, Projective 3, is do you want to be happy and healthy, or do you want to have a psychopathic narcissist feast on your soul? Those are your only two choices. You're not going to get what you want. You're not going to be able to manipulate her to go into a trance and treat you like somebody you're not forever. It will never happen. So I can't co-sign that question for you. I don't know if I answered your question or not. Black Earth Productions question: why does the BPD use your past against you during discard phase in terms of gaslighting, yet denies that they are projecting or even doing so on their own toxic behavior? A very, very simple answer: because they are mentally ill. All of the questions that you're asking assume a rational person like you. So you're projecting yourself. You're projecting your rationality. This is cognitive dissonance. What you've just talked about is cognitive dissonance. The word cognitive dissonance sounds benign, but it's actually horrific. It means insanity. It means being on the verge of insanity, but never actually, going insane, which would be a relief. You're on the verge of insanity and you never get there. And you can't make sense of somebody else's irrational behavior because you're projecting onto them and you're expecting them to be rational. You're asking a dog to play chess. You're asking a shark to ride a skateboard. You're asking, the impossible. And that's your narcissism, my friend. If you can acknowledge that you are selfishly projecting your narcissism, that your fantasy of I want them to be rational, if you realize that they're incapable because they have a mental illness, then you will stop asking these questions about them. But it's very painful. Nothing like it. All right, what else? Zaboravic. Okay, let's see. I think he's agreeing with me there. Yeah, I think he's just agreeing with me, so good for you. Honest. KB says honest feeling. Okay, you're talking to somebody else. Let's see if this is an honest feeling, or let's see. As a BPD woman, I have not re-idealized, idolized any of my exes. I often ask, why do I go back? I know that every time that I have left, for whatever reason, real or imagined, I have been unable to feel the same way again, and each time I went back, I liked them less. All right, so I think she wrote that before I responded. So there you go, from the mouth of a borderline. They'll never re-idealize you. It will never happen. That's the sad part. It's like, if you got your 2 weeks or your 1 month and that 1 month of idealization is over, pack up and go. Because that's it. That's as good as it gets. If I go surfing and, it's perfect, the wind is perfect and the tide is perfect and I get perfect waves for an hour and then the wind picks up and the tide gets all bad, that's it for the day. There's no point in staying out there. There's not going to be another good wave. It's just going to get worse. That's it for today. No more surfing today. You've been with borderline, you got idealized, and it's over now. The best you can do is go back and try and remember what you had. It's the best you're going to get. Move on. What else? Our Life Cure says dating a borderline forces you to be aware of your own untreated issues. That's why we date them. I shouldn't say that in the present tense because I'm not dating one, nor do I intend on dating one ever again. That's why we've dated them. As I said earlier, because we're trying to prevent our own imminent descent into insanity. We're trying to fix the relationship with our primary caregivers in order to get them to turn around and love us and heal us. If you become aware of that, then you can go and work on your childhood issues and all that. But you can't do that while you're with them. So if people say, no, I'm dating her and I'm learning so much about myself. No, you're not. You're somewhat aware of your issues, but you're not learning a damn thing. You have to get out of the relationship. You have to do the 3 things I say. Well, maybe you don't have to. In my opinion, this is the only way that it works. Therapy. Coda.org. Work the 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous or whatever 12-step group you want, and then daily meditation. Those are the 3 things you need. You don't do those 3 things. Well, I don't know what else is out there. That's the only thing that's worked for me. All 3 of them. You don't do all 3 of them on a daily basis, you will be in pain for the rest of your life. If you've been with a borderline and you fell in love and you were there for any length of time, that pain will not go away on its own. You will relive it, you'll rethink it, you'll find another one, you'll become narcissistic yourself. Like the question that was asked earlier. Projective, I don't know how to pronounce your name. He doesn't realize it, but I went through the same thing. He is, without realizing it, he wants to become a narcissist. Because what he is intuiting is that borderlines want to either do one of 2 things to you unconsciously. They're not conscious of this. Unconsciously, they want to do one and or both of these things. They want to either siphon off your your identity and live off of that, which will mean, you will wither away. You'll stop. They will suck the life out of you in order to feed off of your identity. My borderline ex told it to my face without realizing it, but she said, I like being around. The reason why she said she liked being with me was, I like being around a strong masculine presence, and I will do everything I can to make them happy so that their happiness I can sort of slide inside of it and enjoy it, which means I don't have an identity in myself, and if I'm perfect and I meet your fantasy, then you'll be happy. Then I can siphon off your identity of being comfortable in yourself, and then I'll be comfortable. It's a strategy that never works. So they end up, of course, splitting. If it worked, they'd keep doing it, but it never works. So that's the first one. The second one is they want to be abused, because if they are abused, then they can be in their codependent nature, which is to seek after intimacy and never get it. And so the chase, chasing after what you can never have, They like that because the intimacy is what forces them to split. So if they don't want to split, they'll date a narcissist. They never have to split in their minds. But what ends up happening is that because they are so codependent, they will become the perfect doormat. They'll become an inverted narcissist, and they'll become the perfect doormat. And then the narcissist will become dependent upon their supply, and then it'll open them up and make them more vulnerable. Then the borderline will go in, chew them to pieces, destroy them, and discard them. So either way, they do the same thing. But let me read this. This is something, a screenshot, I think that was penned by Sam Vaknin. It says, this is a quote, so I'm assuming that he wrote this. He says, these kind of people, meaning cluster Bs, borderlines and narcissists, these kind of people, having grown up in abusive, traumatizing environments, their comfort zone is abuse. They feel good only when they feel bad. They feel relieved to be tortured, humiliated, degraded, insulted, beaten up. Then they feel relief because it's familiar. They know the ropes, they know the rules, and they know how to manipulate the abuser. That's something that if you're just a regular old non-disordered codependent, you don't have that ability. You don't have the ability to manipulate them. What that person asked earlier, he was asking me, he didn't say this, but his unconscious question was, how can I manipulate the borderline to constantly be idealizing me? And one, although it's not fully effective, answer to that is to become a narcissist. If you become an abusive narcissist, then you will keep them longer, but it will be a chess game you won't win. Because they are masters. They know how to manipulate the abuser. The borderlines, what happens is that there's been some study I heard from somebody, I'm going to assume it's true, that infants at day 5, so they've been alive for 5 days, they've been out of the womb for 5 days, at day 5 they start learning how to manipulate the parent. It's not a negative thing. They learn how to laugh, giggle, something, the tone of their crying, in order to get the parent to respond and give them their needs. The borderlines are masters of this because they survived. They didn't die from lack of attention or abuse. So they have mastered the ability to manipulate you to get what they want. This is why they believe they are psychic. Maybe some of them are psychic, if you choose to believe it. It's because of this. This is why they are constantly analyzing every minute change in temperature in the air. They're monitoring the blood flow on your face, the look. I remember once, I don't remember what was happening. I think I was in the process of trying to break up with my borderline, and I don't know what she said, but I lied, and I itched my nose, and she goes, "You know what it means when you itch your nose, right?" So she knew whether I was telling the truth or not. It wouldn't matter. You cannot manipulate them unless you're a narcissist. But the thing is, the borderline will know. They will know you're a narcissist, and they will know all of your weaknesses and your vulnerabilities. In fact, they're cataloging. They're constantly, they're going to figure you out. If it takes them 10 years, they would love that. They would love to be in a severely abusive relationship with a narcissist, a master narcissist, that they would spend 10 years figuring out everything, testing this, testing that, until finally they found a way to be the thing that you need the most, and then they're just going to destroy you. That's what you're getting with an untreated borderline. See, what else? All right, so let's see, where did I go here? Steve Jones. Okay, so somebody named Steve Jones. Okay, so Steve Jones is the same person. This person has come on twice now. This is the third time. I know exactly who you are, Steve Jones. And the first two letters of your name are not S and G. S and J. J is one of them. J is the second letter of your name. You keep making new. If you guys want to see an untreated narcissist in action, look at Steve Jones. Steve Jones is not a male and is not Steve Jones, and has been trolling me for a long time. Anyway, I don't, I'm not going to put up with it. So we're going to block Steve Jones. And I really wish that Steve Jones would actually go get some therapy, and get some help. But anyway, let's say goodbye to Steve Jones. They're going to be blocked forever. Let's see, what else? God Emperor. Okay, so you guys see that as well. Under what circumstances would T98, I don't know who T98 is. Under what circumstances would somebody consider being with someone who has borderline personality? Under what circumstances? I don't understand the question. I don't think any rational person would ever consider it, because the definition of cluster B is that they are incapable of intimacy, emotionally connecting, and they're incapable of not sabotaging and destroying you in the process. Even if their intention is to love you, they may consciously want to love you, they can't do it. The only circumstance I can imagine is if they've been in therapy for at least 10 years. And even then, you're still not going to be with somebody who's healed or cured. You'll just be with somebody who is learning how to take contrary action. That's one of the main things you learn in 12 steps, is contrary action. Now, I don't think that cluster Bs actually benefit from 12 steps. I think they need, their specific kind of therapy. But it ends up being the same thing, is that maybe they get to learn and heal some things within themselves. I honestly don't know. But really all they're doing is they're learning how to manage their symptoms so that they don't act out destructively. But that's the best you'll ever get. Let's see, what else? Jameson-san, question: where does compassion end and self-preservation begin? The BPD people in my life are how they are because of trauma. I have all of this hatred and anger that I feel clouds my judgment. All right, so I know Jameson, so that's why I'm pausing, because I'm, Jameson, like myself, when you're working through something, asks pretty much the same question in different ways. So Jameson, you're asking me, what I see here is that you're struggling with the feelings of compassion that you have, which are really guilt and feelings of responsibility. So that's not real compassion. Where do those feelings end and self-preservation begin? Well, bear in mind that your feelings of compassion actually are an inaccurate form of self-preservation. Inaccurate isn't the right word. Inefficient. It's your compassion is your method of self-preservation. It's an inefficient strategy because it doesn't get us what we want. So I would just drop the whole compassion thing to start with. I would give yourself permission to just not have compassion. I think that's the real, maybe that's the real challenge for you, is being able to tolerate that you don't have any compassion for them. You're right, the people in your life are the way they are because of trauma, but again, if you and I were to talk on the phone, I feel which I'm sure we will again, I will feel very confident that the conversation would turn into you telling me how you need to, even though you don't want to, take care of these people in this way, because if I don't take care of it, they're going to die and the whole world is going to fall apart. To which I would say, I would walk you through it, and I would rationally help you understand that this is really the only amount of power you have. This is really the only amount of responsibility you have, and you can't prevent them from damaging themselves anyway. There's nothing you can do to stop them. And even if they blame you and do damage to themselves and blame you, it doesn't change the reality. The problem is you can't tolerate the thought. This is your transactional love. This is your narcissism. You can't tolerate the thought of not being the perfect helper. I fixed it. Now fuck off. I fixed you. Now leave me alone. I fixed you perfectly. I did everything that you needed and I was supposed to do. Now go fuck yourself. You can't do that. You're not able to do that. There is no fixing. There is no solving of the problem. It can't be solved. The healthy thing for you is to accept that there is no hope for them. That they are damaged, yes, they're damaged in the same way that you're damaged. They have their own response to it. The same ability exists for them to reach out for help. But they have to reach out for it. They have to say, I need help, and they need to pick up the phone and call the therapist or go to a 12-step meeting or whatever it is that they need to do. You don't have the power to give that to them. And even if you did, if you gave them the pill, you said, hey, mom, dad, sister, brother, whomever it is, if you said, this vial contains the cure, I'm going to hand it to you because you have to drink it. Otherwise, I would force it down your throat just so that I wouldn't have to feel this fucking guilt for the rest of my life. But I'm going to hand this to you. It's a cure for everything that you're complaining about. If you just drink it, it'll all be okay. The moment you give it to them, they're going to sniff it and then they're going to pour it on themselves and throw it around and say, it doesn't work. You did it to me again. They have to choose. You're not getting that. The compassion is give them the right to choose their own life. They have the right to destroy themselves. You want to see yourself superior to them. You want to know how? Because you say, I can take care of myself, so therefore I have to have compassion and fix them. They're the way they are. They can't help it. That's what you've been programmed to believe, the external locus of control. They're telling you, I can't take care of myself, Jameson, you have to do it for me. You say, I know, I am actually better than you, I'm more put together, I'm going to take care of you because fucking hey, if I don't, who is? And they say, that's right, but that's not what's going on. You say, I'm going to take care of myself now. I can't take care of myself and take care of your needs. I can't do both. So I'm going to go take care of me. And they say, wait, what about us? And you say, well, here's where the compassion comes in. You say, I love you so much that I'm going to go take care of me so that you will have an example of how to reach out and get help. I'll even tell you, I'll give you the phone numbers of the different things. Here's the 12-step, and here's a therapist number. Call them. I went online and I found for you online, free online therapy. There it is. Now you take it and you run with it. I've given you the vial. You go drink it. That's compassion. So there isn't a line. What you understandably want to make a differentiation between compassion and self-preservation because you think they're opposites. You think self-preservation destroys them and compassion heals them. But in fact, it's the other way around. Self-preservation heals them and heals you. So there's no difference. So the first thing to do is, like when you're in a plane, right? And you've got a baby and the plane is going to crash. What's the first thing they say? Put the mask on yourself first then put it on your child. Because if you pass out, then nobody's going to put it on the child. That's self-preservation and compassion are the same thing. So, I know your situation, and unless it's changed, you just got to go take care of you. They're perfectly capable of doing what they need to do if they choose to do it. And if they don't choose to do it, you're already off the hook, my friend. And they're going to feel however they're going to feel. Individuate. If you love them, give them the right to hate you. You're trying to prevent them from hating you by constantly trying to, fix their problems. If you love them, give them the right to hate you. They have that right. Stop trying to take that away from them. That's their own self-justification for whatever. Okay? I think I beat that horse to death. You say, I have all of this hatred and anger that I feel clouds my judgment. No, you're finally getting real judgment. You're finally having your hatred and your anger. And your hatred and your anger are saying, no, you have been clouded this whole time. You're supposed to take care of yourself. You're supposed to be angry, and that anger is supposed to fuel you to separate. And we either separate with anger or we try and control. If you try and control, it's self-destructive. If you separate, that's constructive and it's healing. So you've got it backwards. You've been clouded this whole time. You're now starting to wake up and become aware of how angry you are and the hatred. Oh my God, I hate this. These fucking people. They have to take care of themselves. It's not my job anymore. I'm going to go take care of myself. You have to hate them to separate. If you don't separate, you won't be able to take care of yourself. So give yourself the right to hate them. Give yourself the right to be angry. And then go take care of yourself. Zabrovic. My ex-BPD girlfriend once said, I want all men to adore me and then want to destroy them. Especially, what just happened here? Let's see. Especially my direct partner. I recognize all of your, okay, so yeah, you agree with me. All right, so KB's trying to fight it out with Steve, who I got rid of, who is the same person. You know who Steve is? Steve is Donovan Mitchell. You notice how all these names, like Mookie the Fraud. You know what Mookie the Fraud is? That's somebody trying to say Mike the Fraud. That's somebody trying to call me a fraud. So they create a name called Mookie the Fraud. We know who this person is. It's a person who has their own channel that in June started a smear campaign against me and is now going on. I've caught them online lying about it, saying that I smeared against them, which is not true. So first they came on as Donovan Mitchell, then they came on as Mookie the Fraud, and because I blocked both of those, then they came on again, two names. You know, if you see this, like you see this in Nigeria, like the fraud names are these two first names. You know, Don James. Hi, I'm Don James. You know, they just come up with these names. Steve Jones. I mean, you know, it's like you pulled it out of John Smith, Steve Jones, Mookie the Fraud. You know, trying to call me. It's the same person. We know who this person is. Person who goes by two initials. We know who it is. Yeah. So let's see what else. Richard Gurgley, he was in love. Steve. Okay, I don't know. Yeah, you guys are trying to. I appreciate you trying to protect me from the narcissists. You don't need to. I'm perfectly capable of blocking narcissists when they show up. Let's see. Our life cure. Question. As devastating the negative impact of a borderline can have on someone, why is this disorder so unknown in society? That's a good question. None of my friends, family, or even my primary care doctor knew what BPD was. That's a really good question. I don't know, but I agree with you. Now, you know, in hindsight, you know, I would say that Western society, especially the United States, but you know, I'm here in Australia. This is where I really learned about it. But I would say Western society in general, or you know, any of the big, huge countries where people, you know, lose their identity and they become part of the machine. You know, I think that's what creates it. Yeah, and it is very unknown. I don't have an answer for you. I mean, I could philosophize about it, but I agree. I think it's, I really think that BPD is just like I said. I think for me, what's really important is to understand what codependence is. And codependence, as I said, is the need to be, that your value is determined upon what you do. I mean, even as simple as, if you're a woman, you're loved because of your body. You're loved because of your beauty. You're loved because of your money. You're loved, as long as you're objectified. You're loved for what you do for other people, not for who you are. And that, Western society is all about that. And, now to, another extent, China, when you don't see that is when you go back to, you see people who live in tribal communities where everybody's taking care of each other, and the babies are taken care of by the mom and the grandmother and the aunts and the uncles, and the kid is just constantly being, loved and taken care of, and is, mom's out in the field and baby's on her back. We don't put babies in cribs and then stick, iPads in front of them so we don't have to deal with them. I think that's probably the most simple answer to the question of why. But I think it has to do with codependence. As I said, it's just varying degrees of transactional love. And transactional love on the far end of the spectrum kills us. It destroys us. Jonathan Batista, if you have a question, do me a favor, ask the word question. Write the word question so I can see it. Otherwise, I might miss it. He asks, is it normal to feel like you're picking up their traits? Yes, that is the whole goal. The unconscious goal of the borderline is to infect you with their pain. They are hoping on an unconscious level that you're the savior, so they see you as the savior. They are hoping on an unconscious level that they're going to take all of their pain and they're going to give it to you. First, they think that you, as you swoop down out of the clouds and pick them up, that your love will make their pain go away. That doesn't happen. So then when they discard you, what they're doing is they're blaming you. So by blaming you for their pain, they believe they can take that pain and give it to you and then run away. It's like a hot potato. They think if they can put it on you and run away, then they won't be in pain anymore. Again, this is not a conscious thought. Their conscious thought is, this person is trying to destroy me. I thought they were something they're not. They're trying to destroy me. Oh, here's a new Prince Charming. Oh, he'll fix me. I'm going to go to him, and on the way out, I'm going to dump all my stuff on this person, and then now I'll be saved. And it just gets transferred. So, here's the thing about love, about relationships. If you're a healthy person filled with an identity and filled with self-love, filled with an internal locus of control and health and happiness, then your greatest joy will be seeing that in your partner. You won't be thinking to yourself narcissistically. You'll still have normal things and project and all that stuff. But your goal will be to be with somebody who's empowered and happy. And if you can help them be empowered and happy and self-contained, then you will enjoy that, because that will make them turn around and go, wow, and they'll want to give that gift back to you. So the gift that you're trying to give to the other person what you're experiencing. If you're healthy, you're going to try and give that to your partner. If you're unhealthy, you're going to try and give that to your partner. This is what happens when we try and, this is what the attempt to create intimacy does. Intimacy is that. You're fusing of souls and identities. So, yes, what I say is that with borderlines, you get infected with the zombie virus. So you don't become a borderline, but you get bitten, and even after the discard, the virus continues to grow and you get worse and worse and you start to feel exactly like the borderline. So their unconscious goal, which is everybody's goal in relationship, is to make you feel what they feel all the time. It's like when you go and you're on vacation and you're walking in the moonlight and you go, oh, I wish my wife was here to see this. You're wanting to share it. So it's a backhanded compliment. So what ends up happening is that you become conscious. Here's, again, part of the strategy of the illness. The strategy of the mental illness is to get you to consciously feel what they cannot consciously tolerate. They can't tolerate it. But if they can get you to consciously feel it, they'll see it in you, and then they can project on you by rejecting you. And their rejecting of you is their unconscious projection of getting rid of the illness. And then they'll be safe. That make sense? So yes, this is why I say there's only one thing. You've got to go no contact, and you've got to do those three things. Therapy, working the 12 steps, and daily meditation. That's the only way to heal yourself. And if you do that, you can heal yourself of the relationship. What else? Jonathan Batista says, I cheated on my BPD because I thought she was doing it to me. Yeah, so you caught her, you just started doing what she did. She's training you to become a narcissist because I think borderlines they think they want to be loved. What they really want is they want to be abused. So she's trying to turn you into a narcissist, and it worked. So in order to keep her, you cheated on her in the hopes that you could keep her. Unconsciously, you didn't realize that, but that's what you were hoping. You were hoping that that would turn her around and make, the drama of it would make her come chasing back to you and appreciate you, etc., etc. Zabarovic question. They say BPD can be cured. Who are they? And by the way, it is not said. Whoever they are, they're in the minority. If you watch this video from the beginning, I talk about that. The professional psychological community actually says the opposite. BPD cannot be cured. Let's see, what else? Grace French. All right, so she's agreeing with me there as above her. A question, can you make a video about how to best co-parent with the next BPD woman? Yeah, listen, I'll tell you right now. Go get a lawyer and go get a therapist. Tell your therapist that I want the best for my child and I want to get full custody. Go to the lawyer and say, what are my legal rights here? The best way to create a borderline is to be raised by one. So you, Zabarovic, now I'm going to get real with you because a kid is involved. You got involved with somebody who was emotionally destructive. You chose to stay with that person, and then you chose to have a child with that person. And that child is going to suffer. You got 3 years to get it right. So I don't know how old the kid is. I don't know how much damage has been done. In my case, at the other end of the world, are you saying that your partner's at the other end of the world? Well, then good. So much the better. Or better completely let go. The child, the child's on the other end of the world. I don't know how to help you. What are you gonna? It's like that's like saying to me, my wife has COVID and she's got the custody of the kid. What's the best way for me over here in isolation on the other end of the world? What's the best way I can do to keep my kid from getting COVID? You can't. They're breathing the same air. So I don't know how best to help you. Those would be the two things I would do is I would call a lawyer and I would call a therapist and I would say, I want to parent my kid and take responsibility. What can I do to get them out of that situation? If we're talking about an untreated borderline, Anyway, I have very strong feelings about the kid. Once the kid is involved, it's no longer about you. So Zabarovic, I don't give a crap about you right now. There's an innocent kid involved. So that's what I would recommend. Do whatever you could to take care of that kid. Richard Gurgley, question. I have gone no contact because of a threat. So legally we are 1 year no contact. What is the correct first communication when that day comes that we talk again? Why are you even thinking like that? I don't understand. I mean, let's just sit with that for a second. Well, let's just give it pause. Why are you even thinking like that? Seems pretty clear to me that you want to get back together. No, I don't. No, you do. Because not only do you want to know how to communicate, you want to know the correct communication. When that day comes, you're hoping. So you're still in it, my friend. Let me guess. You haven't done the 3 things I suggest. You aren't talking with a therapist. You aren't working the 12 steps of Coda. And you're not doing daily meditation. Right? You're in denial. There is no correct first communication. There's this person who's isolated, who has a highly contagious, lethal disease, and I'm thinking someday I'm probably gonna, kiss them on the mouth. What's the best way to do that? There isn't a best way. The kindest thing you can do for that person is to never talk to them again. According to you, you're not even taking full responsibility because you say you have gone, quote, no contact because of a threat. So it means you haven't gone no contact. No contact means not that you're currently not communicating with them. That's not what no contact means. No contact means that you have proactively blocked your phone, blocked your email, blocked all of your social media. You've moved out of your apartment. If need be, you have thrown your phone away and gotten a new phone, maybe even changed your name. You have made it impossible for them to find you and contact you. That's what no contact means. Because when you make that decision, like that you're pressing the button, that person essentially will stop existing and you'll never be able to ever see them again. They will leave this planet. When you make that commitment, then you energetically and psychologically break the connection. The psychological connection is what's most important, people. Borderlines know this. When they discard you and they say, I can't talk to you again, I never want to see you, or they disappear, or they block you, they're not ending the communication with you. That, among other things, is part of reeling you in. They're setting you up for the Hoover because they know that you're addicted to them. That's why they picked you. They wouldn't have picked somebody who goes, I can't get this person on the phone. I'll give you an example. Some woman on one dating app messaged me. Looked really good. Wanted to get together. So I said, when do you want to get together? And she said, oh, how about tomorrow? And I said, that sounds great. She says, oh, now that I think about it, I'm doing this and that. I might not be able to. So I said, okay, no problem. Whenever. And I thought to myself, we'll see. That, sometimes that's somebody having good boundaries. Sometimes that's somebody, playing games with you, trying to reel you in. So I didn't do anything. Then I got a message, hey, how are you? And I said, hey, do you want to get together? And then more talking. She said, gave me her phone number. Okay, let's text. I texted her, hey, when do you want to meet? Her response was, hi, how are you? I said, I'm fine. Haven't heard anything from her since. That's strike 3. Okay? Whatever the deal is, that person is incapable of following through and having, I'm already, if I was attached to her, I'd already be like, oh, where are you? And when are we going to get together? No, I'm done. You can't respond, it's over. There is no correct contact. Just end it. Break the psychological connection. That way you don't have to ask this question. Songs Josh sings question, is there a good way to help a borderline? Is there a good way to help a borderline recognize and accept that they have problems, that they may think they are normal behaviors? That's not really what you want to ask me. What you want to ask me is, what can I do to get them to behave in the way that I want them to behave? What can I do to get them to love me? That's your question. So pay attention. Welcome to the channel. I assume you're new. Watch my channel. What is it that I tell you? There's no hope. You cannot get a borderline to love you, to attach to you, to connect with you. There's only one thing that will come from connecting, having a relationship with a borderline, and that is your ultimate destruction and insanity and pain and misery. That's not their fault. A guy who lost his legs in a car accident cannot run a marathon. Borderlines cannot rationally. You're asking me, what's a good way to rationally communicate and get them to become rational and understand how to rationally function with me according to the way the world works with me? It's not going to happen. That they may think they have a mental illness, so of course they don't know they have a problem. So you're asking me, how can I get the person who has a mental illness that precludes them from understanding that they have a mental problem? How can I get them to understand they have a mental problem? Right now, you're the insane person. You're asking, you might as well ask me, how can I get my dog to play chess with me? How can I get my dog to, I don't know, learn how to water ski on 2 skis? How can I teach my dog how to go to work and become an accountant? That dog isn't capable. You need to get your shit together. You need to get your ass to a therapist, and you need to start, in my opinion, work the 12 steps, because you'll find out how much power you have. So I'm not going to answer that behavior because there is no answer to it. You're the one right now that's out of whack. You're the one that is having an insane projection on somebody that can't give you what you want. And it's time to just let them go and accept that they have a mental illness, and you'll never get what you want. Time to move on. And I'm saying this even, here's the kindest thing you can do with any borderline. The kindest thing you can do is you can say to them, having a relationship with you, even if it's a friendship, is destructive to me. And so I'm going to have to leave and I'm going to stop having contact with you. I think that you might have borderline personality disorder, and I recommend you go check that out. That's it. There's nothing else to say. They're 99% chance likely they're going to blow up and hate that, and they're going to be upset with you just for even mentioning it. They're going to hate you for even mentioning it. But the thing is, if that everybody that they interacted with after they split on them the first time, because when a borderline splits on you, it's not like the average person doing something, destructive. When they split on you, it's always totally irrational and very hurtful and very destructive. Borderlines, if you're listening to me, some people write and say, well, sometimes they deserve it. I promise you they didn't. When you split, you put up with a lot of stuff that's, hurtful, but splitting, when you split, it's for other reasons. So if they split on you just once and you go, you know what, I can't have anything to do with you, you're destructive to me, I think you need help. You need to check out, see if you have borderline personality disorder. If everybody did that, so many more borderlines would be motivated to go and get help. So you can't help them. You can't make them recognize anything. You can only take care of yourself. And the fact that you're with somebody to the extent that you feel the need to fix them and help them figure things out, it means you're already in a codependent relationship and you're in your own form of insanity. You think you're trying to teach a dog how to play chess. So you need to get out and tell them you think they need help. And if they choose to go get help, great. If not, then they'll just keep doing what they've been doing with somebody else. Odys Vladislas talks about how he started taking on his borderline traits. I understand that. Jameson-san question. Gave tools in the manner described. They have their first appointment next week. I got the courage to give ultimatum, help yourself or see ya. Finally heard, afraid of giving an inch and giving them taking a mile. Well, yeah, so going through with that means that you stop having any expectations on the outcome. Right now in that question, it sounds like you have an expectation. They're gonna, and I understand it, that I've given them the ultimatum, they're gonna go, and now you're waiting patiently to see what happens. You still gotta go. Now that you've given them the lifeline, now you gotta get the hell out. It's like you're in a room with people who have COVID, and you've got a mask on, and the mask is gonna disintegrate in 5 minutes, and you've given them the, whatever it is, giving them the cure, and now you got to get the hell out of the room before your mask disintegrates. Don't wait around to see if it takes. You got to get the hell out. So good. Now stop waiting around and get out. And you say, could you give tips generally on how that now that I finally see the change happening? You haven't seen the change happening yet. You haven't seen anything yet. Now that I finally see the change happening to have a healthy relationship, how can I know what is genuine and what is manipulation? You can't. You need to get out. You're not qualified to know what's healthy and what's unhealthy yet. You still have expectations. You still have a long way to go. So it's not here, you do it or I'm gonna stay. It's here, I'm getting out, go do this. You put down the boundary. Now that they're gonna go take action, now you gotta follow through on your end. What else? Richard Gurgley. Okay, so what else? Our life cure is going to be the local codependent. It's going to help me. It's going to help me and give people answers. I can't control what people do here, but I don't recommend. I'm perfectly capable of giving my own advice. You want to give advice to somebody, you can start your own channel, and when they come onto your channel and ask questions, you can give them your advice. I don't need yours. I don't need your help. Thank you. Focus on you. Let them focus on themselves. All right, what else? BPDs need to smoke weed all day to chill the fuck out. No, that's actually the worst thing they can do. Zabara, by the way, Jonathan Batista, I would say that you smoking weed doesn't help you either. It's a way of stuffing your feelings. I recommend you get some help and stop smoking weed, if that's what you're doing. But having said that, it's your life. Do whatever the hell you want. The legal systems do not recognize BPD to my knowledge. That would make it feasible for me to get custody. Well, first off, don't tell me what you think you know. Go talk to a lawyer. Don't waste my effing time with you telling me what you think. Go talk to a lawyer first. After talking to a lawyer, if the lawyer says you can't get custody, because if somebody has BPD, they've got other things going on. So I'm not going to buy into that. And again, external locus of control, the legal system, et cetera, et cetera. So let's see here. That would make it feasible for me to get custody. The mother, my ex, has been diagnosed with severe BPD for my child. It's yeah. So I don't know that. Go get a lawyer first and then talk to me. You're in Costa Rica. All right. So then I can't help you, my friend. Unfortunately, it's a problem. You do have a lawyer. All right. So then you know better than I do. Then you can only do what you can do. Were you the one asking me how to best co-parent with an ex-BPD woman? I don't know. To be honest, I'm not in that situation, and there's a reason I'm not in that situation. I made a decision years ago. I didn't want to have kids for these kinds of reasons. Not that I thought something this extreme would happen, but so you're kind of out of my depth, and it's a bummer. I don't know how to help you in that point. I have nothing but compassion for you. Sounds difficult. But, the only thing now is to focus on what you do have control over. So if you don't have any control over the fact that your ex is raising your child and you don't have any legal course of action, then the only thing you can do is focus on yourself. and take care of yourself. That's all you got. Songs Josh sings question. Do you think the internet is contributing to a rise in cluster beach rates in the general population? How does that Songs Josh sings, let me ask you this question. How does that question help you? Are we at a bar now having a drink and we're just talking about life? I want to answer questions about how you can make your life better. This sounds like the kind of shit two people sitting around can do, complaining as they smoke weed, talking about the ills of society and how the internet is causing. That's what that sounds like to me. Yeah, I think that our society, yeah, like I said, I gave an example. You know, mothers now will throw, they'll just simply put their kids in front of a television, or worse yet, they'll put them in front of an iPad. And they think that's parenting. So I would agree to that. But again, I want you to go deeper about yourself. I'm more interested in that than this kind of a question. Anyway. All right. I think I've sufficiently pissed off enough people and hopefully helped enough people as well. That's it for me, guys. If you didn't watch this from the beginning, go back and watch this video from the beginning and watch it from the beginning so you can get some of the things I really wanted to say. I think, at least for me, you know, in the beginning when I walked through all of the notes that I put, I found those to be really helpful for me. And so I'm hoping it'll be helpful for you as well. 3 things you need to do if you want to heal from the relationship. You need to get therapy, number 1. And there's no excuse for that. There's therapy all over the place. You can get free therapy if you look for it. Number 2, coda.org, coda.org. Go to a meeting, online meeting, get yourself a sponsor and work the steps as fast as possible. And then 3, daily meditation. If you do that, those 3 things on a daily basis, to the best of your ability, you will be able to completely heal from that relationship. You will no longer feel pain, anxiety, all that stuff. It may take you a while, but I guarantee you if you do the work, you can completely heal. And that's really the whole point of this. All right. Thank you again, guys. I'll see you all next time when I see you. Take care of yourselves. See, where's my end screen? Here.